Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. As you guys know, my name is Edward, and today I'm bringing you guys a very special guest. It's an old friend of mine who I think has a very interesting and unique story that I'd like to share with you that I think should be heard. His name is Alex. Me and him go way back, a very long time. We both grew up in the same neighborhood in Brooklyn, New York, went to the same high school, and actually joined the military together. Without too much of an introduction, I'm going to let the man speak. Introduce himself a little bit. So Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome, man. It's good to have you, brother. So please introduce yourself to our audience and tell the viewers a little bit about yourself briefly, how long you've lived in the United States, and what year did you ultimately decide to leave to move to Russia?
So, hello everyone. My name is Alex. I'm 38 right now. I came to the United States when I was 12 years old. My parents brought me to New York. And I've lived in the United States for 25 years. And I have to say, out of the 25, 20 were very, very good years.
What were the factors that ultimately led you to your decision to leave America and to move to Russia permanently?
Everything changed. And it changed pretty fast. I want to say within probably, 5 years when I started thinking about moving back. And the reason for this is honestly, it's if I can summarize it, I'll just leave it at this. We all have our reasons. To me, it's this: when clearly the country is going in the wrong direction, right? That happens. It's periods. It's cycles. It happens everywhere. As a citizen who goes to work, pays the taxes, law-abiding citizen, you expect certain things from the government, right? So when the country is going in the wrong direction, in my opinion, you'd like to see some changes being made or some kind of progress being made, whether it's slow or fast, right? What I saw in the United States was complete opposite. When something was going wrong, the government was just pushing more and more into that direction. As far as the examples go, let's just start with crime. Like that's something that affected me in a way because I saw the decline of the neighborhood that I lived in. We all want an American dream when we come there, right? Go to school, get a good job, buy an apartment in a nice neighborhood. And me and my wife, we had all that. Then comes just a decline. The crime is everywhere, but the crime is being encouraged by different factors. You can guess what they were. But then what happens is, once those people get caught, you start seeing a cycle of them not being punished. And on top of that, you also start seeing bias where you have criminals. We had a guy rob a bank in New York. I don't know if you read that story, twice in one day.
What year was it?
What happened was, so my example, I'm sorry I'm all over the place with this, is that the crime started going up. The government's response, bail reform. What does that mean? Oh, we're going to talk about equality.
What were the particular aspects of American society that you found incompatible with your lifestyle or beliefs and prompting your decision to relocate?
Well, as far as my beliefs and the change that I saw, I hold myself to certain integrity that my parents, raised me as, and my values just stopped being aligned with a lot of people. What I mean by that is, first of all, everybody in America is kind of for themselves. So to be honest with you, I was blind to all of this. My parents told me, or they reminded me throughout my life, especially my teens in America, don't forget you're Russian. You have a Russian soul, you have all of that, right? And I said, Mom, what is that? What are you even talking about? I grew up here. It's not cool being Russian, especially in teen years,
Can you touch on that a little bit? Because I experienced a little bit of bullying when we first immigrated to the United States, and back in 1990, I believe 1993, if my memory serves me correctly. I remember starting elementary school. And at that time, life in America was very different, and particularly when it came to immigration. I remember going to school and being told, hey, go back to Russia, and I was only 8, 9 years old at the time. Can you share a little bit about your experience in that department?
Yeah, go back to Russia and all of that. To be honest with you, it didn't bother me much because everyone experienced that. If you're a Muslim, if you're black, if you're an immigrant in America, you're going to experience a lot of that. What's funny is that people that are telling you that are immigrants, maybe second generation, third, we all are, right? But you get a lot of it, you kind of brush it to the side. So my culture shock was when I went to high school. Right?
Let me interrupt. How old were you when you arrived to the United States?
I was 12.
12.
Sorry, not
Okay.
high school, junior high school. And we just got to the country. Back in Russia, I grew up in the 90s, like most people, we out there running around and rivers, and I grew up where there was like a foresty area. We're just doing all kinds of shit.
What part of Russia was that?
That was Crimea.
Okay.
Crimea. It was USSR back then. So when we immigrate, I don't know any better. My shirt is a certain way. My sneakers that I wore all the time, they had some holes in it. That's something that you never, as a kid, you don't pay attention to. So when I went into junior high school, I still had clothes that I came with from Russia. And I remember kids were laughing at me, pointing. I spoke no English. That's the other thing. So in that moment, though, I was not offended at all because I did not understand what was happening. Are they like happy to see me? Because the whole, the standards of having clean clothes, say different shirt every day, latest sneakers, that did not exist in Russia, at least back then. So I was just complete opposite of that. And oh my God, I had to hear about it all the time. The good thing is that I did not understand what was happening. Later on, of course, I caught up. Now I'm looking back and laughing about that, right? But of course, there are also a lot of stereotypes associated with immigrants, with Russians. A lot of people just will not want to deal with you. So when I went to school, I hung out with other Russians. It's just clicks, clicks, clicks on clicks, and people want nothing to do with you unless you,
and especially being that you came here a little bit older. For example, I came here when I was 7, so you were a few years older than me when you arrived. When I arrived, I was just starting school. I had just started school in Moscow. I think I was in 1st grade or something like that. When you arrived, I'm sure you started like 5th or something along those lines.
It was 5th or 6th grade.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was 6th grade.
So it definitely was a culture shock because you're used to already one type of life over there, and now you're coming back here and you're forced to assimilate very, very quickly. So share a little bit about that.
So basically, I realized that there's a lot of issues with, my life, or how my norm, I should say, right? I'm coming home now, and kids laugh about my sneakers, my T-shirt, all these different things. Now I'm telling my parents, listen, I need new clothes. I need this, I need that. I don't want to go to school because of constant bullying. Also, the other big factor is I speak no English, right? I speak no English. That brings a whole other aspect of bullying, but also I think it has to do with just kids. You got to understand, kids is gonna do.
It's their nature. So yeah.
I don't want to put too much on just being American.
It happens. It's a thing that predominantly happens to everyone. I think that's no country is a stranger to bullying. But I will point out that I remember in Russia when I started school, we had uniforms. So at least bullying in terms of what you were wearing or as far as your appearance was not a thing. Once you came to America, it was a different story. Again, I also arrived here poor. I didn't have the Nikes. I didn't have the cool clothes and all that stuff. So I went through the same thing. So please continue.
So the aspect of basically the cultural changes, the clothes, the sneakers, the latest things that my parents were not able to provide for me right at that time. They just got there. They have no job. They have nothing. They start from the beginning. And of course, now there's the language barrier on top of that. And you kind of have to deal with basically that, the culture shock. Then you have to deal with the things at home. And when I mean things at home, my parents were amazing. They were, but we couldn't get a lot of things. So it's almost like you had to deal with your parents struggling, going out to trying to find a job every day. And then you have to go to school and deal with the fact that you have nothing. You're worse than anyone else. And I didn't want to go to school. I said, why are we here? What is going on? We had a good life where we came from. My parents always explained to me that at that point, this was 1990s, USSR, Russia, things were trending in the wrong direction. So they had to make the change to provide a better future for myself. And they did. I had an amazing childhood in America, right? But it's kind of ironic at this point, though. They brought me for a better future in America, and now I have to leave America to go back to Russia.
You and I met, and I think it was in 11th grade? Or something along those lines.
Yeah, it was probably 2002. I want to say when we entered the delayed entry program.
Yeah, so for not everybody, one of our viewers is going to know what that is. So let's tell our viewers a little bit about how we met, for what you remember, what we were doing, and we decided to join the Army together. How did we come about with that decision? How did we go in together? Based on what you remember.
That was a long time ago, man. What is it? That was 2000, now, right? 2023.
had to be over that. Yeah, yeah. We went in 2003.
But just for the viewers so they understand, what happens is in high school, you have recruiters come in and they say that the Army can provide certain things for you. Join, it's amazing. And I decided to do that because, to be honest with you, I can say it clearly now that I'm older. I, drank a lot of propaganda, Kool-Aid, American movies. One of my favorite movies is Black Hawk Down. And to be honest with you, the war looked cool to me. And also you got to understand that there was a lot of patriotism back then. 9/11 just happened in 2001. Everything on the news was unity. It was not about being Russian. Everybody was American first, except if you were Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
That
the propaganda was strong.
Yeah. And so, and not to skip ahead a little bit, but now that I've lived for the last 20 years there, I see the pattern. I see what's been happening, and I see how I've been fooled. The thing is, it's the same tactic. It was Muslims then. Now it's Russians or whoever else. Then it's not to get into politics and all that, but if the theme is the same, just if you start looking, you see that it's all artificially created.
At that time, we were both getting ready to go into the military. We were just about to graduate high school. We were going to work out a little bit, try to get prepared for the physical training that we were going to be experiencing. We get into the military, and let's tell our viewers a little bit about what happened after.
We get a year to get ready for the Army. That's how we met. We started training together for the Army. We went in, and then of course we had two different journeys there. When we got into the military and we started training and all that, it all came easy for me at that time. And I believe you were struggling a little bit.
I was struggling. I was definitely not as physically fit as you.
Right. So then as we went through basic training, things for me kind of changed, because I remember that I got a flu and I was really weak, and I kept going to the doctor. They give you these painkillers.
Ibuprofen.
Ibuprofens. Oh my God, it was candy. It was candy. And every time I took that for 5 hours, I felt amazing, right?
So you get hurt, and we're about this point, like halfway through basic training, and you end up hurting your hand.
Back then. That was before I even got hurt. This was just having a fever and all that. So halfway through medical training, they find exactly. I get hurt. I go to a doctor. They do an X-ray. They basically find out that I had a previous injury in my wrist and all that. Somehow from the X-ray that wasn't healed right, etc. And they basically told me they're not liable for the.
So
surgery.
The military didn't offer you any type of medical treatment at that time?
No, they did not. They said basically, because I'm still in training, I had to get out and fix it on my own. Or I can't even remember at this point. I think they offered me to fight it or do some kind of a claim, and then I would be in the medical.
But you would be held over there for a long time indefinitely. And at that point, if you weren't able to serve, you would just rather go home at that point, right?
So that's exactly what happened. Just to fast forward, so you graduated. I stayed. I was there with you. You guys graduated. I still stayed. You guys moved on. I still stayed there. Then they put me to the medical unit, and that was just, oh my God, that was so depressing. It was nothing but people. So
finally, the time comes, and you get discharged from the military. They send you back home. You get back to New York. What happens to you then?
I had to assimilate to life a little bit. That didn't take that long. Of course, after the military, it's weird, the way you stand, the way you speak, etc. So then I got a job. I got a very good job. I worked for a big company dealing with transportation, railroad.
So you were making good money.
I was making very good money. I had a good 17-year career, and honestly, between me and my wife, people emigrate to America for an American dream, and we had it. We had no reasons to leave. You guys were able to purchase an apartment, a vehicle, the job, the whole nine. You had it all. I had a job that was paying a lot of money. We owned our own apartment in Brooklyn. We bought that. We had cars. I had a pension coming in, everything. So you hear stories about people leaving the United States because they couldn't make it, or none of that. When I told people that we are thinking about leaving, people said, "Are you crazy? You're throwing your life away."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So now you're living in New York. You've been out of the military. You weren't able to graduate because of the medical injury. The military refused to take care of you medically. You had the option to go home. You go back home. You restart your life. You get a good career. You guys get an apartment. You get a good woman together with you. And so, being that we're friends and I know you for a long time, tell the viewers, if you don't mind sharing, of course, what started to happen to you psychologically and physically that started to kind of push you in the direction that, you know, I need to do something about this, that no matter what I'm doing, no matter how much money I'm making, something's not working, something doesn't feel right. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so a lot of things happen. Before I say what I say, okay, so just to put it into context, I had an amazing childhood in America. From when I got out the army throughout my career, but it's not the same country as it was when I grew up there anymore. What was starting happening basically is I was stuck in a cycle of work, 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 work. Come home. Now, if I'm working, I had a good job, but it allowed for me to earn overtime. I can make even more money, and you see people around you making even more money. So now you're in that circle. Now you have to buy the same things they do. And what ends up happening is you're making a certain salary, which is good, but now you're living above your means, buying, consuming, and working for it. So all I did was work, 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 work. When I had time off, I blew my money on whether it's vacation, just to decompress, just to relax.
Hmm.
And what eventually led to a cycle of just doing the same thing, going to work, coming home, and I needed to decompress, whether it's a little bit of drinking, whether it's that. Next thing I know, I gained a lot of weight. I was just starting to get depressed. And the worst thing that happened to me was that me and my wife, especially me, I started thinking in the future, when I get my pension, because that's what America teaches you. Your life begins when you get your pension and you can do all those things. You know what I mean? When I get my pension, I'll do this. When I get my pension, I'll do that. When I get my pension, I'll do this. And then, of course, as all those things started to compile, I started to realize, dude, I'm not living any type of life. I'm getting sick. I'm getting sicker, sicker, and sicker between the food, between the propaganda.
And let me just kind of pause right there. So you weren't eating healthy, you weren't really looking after yourself. And now I knew you from when we were younger. And like I said, as we mentioned in the beginning, you were a very extremely fit guy, always at the gym, always working out, motivating me to come along and work out, even though, I wasn't in the same kind of category. I wasn't overweight or out of shape. It's just, it wasn't my thing. But Alex definitely motivated me a lot. And now, so transition, fast forward to a few years later, and all of a sudden everything is changing and you're kind of spiraling and going downhill. Can you tell the viewers a little bit about your mental state at that time?
Yeah, basically I was in depression. I joined the rat race, and to me, if I'm working hard and I'm making money and I'm buying things, this is the only thing that matters in my life, right? That's how you taught. Your success is based on how much money you make and what you have.
It's measured by how much you earn. Absolutely. Here.
But at that point, my mental health just started getting like I started, I first of all I started thinking negatively. Everything was the worst case scenario, overthinking. And at that point too, the country just started to slide down with, the laws that
Things
they're
were
passing,
changing.
which you can, I'm paying all kinds of taxes, and my quality of life is getting worse. They taking more money from me, but I don't see anything. I don't get back anything in return. Everything around you starts to, the gender issues, even freedom of speech. You want to say
So
America has freedom of
things,
speech.
you started to feel like things were kind of, your environment around you was becoming toxic. Things, ideas, ideologies were being kind of shoved down people's throats. And you just felt a little bit like I don't belong here. This isn't right, but I feel powerless to do anything about it. Is that something like you were kind of dealing with?
Exactly. So what happened was, there's two things that led to that though. The decline that you were talking about, but also me being in this American state of mind of getting ahead of my career, making all this money. That already started my decline. It started to decline my relationship with my wife because she wanted to do so many things. I didn't want to do anything. Outside
You were isolating, and you started to withdraw from life.
Yeah, yeah. But here's the thing. My wife said, "Why don't we move? Why don't we move to a different state?" And I said, "I could never do that because I have an amazing career. There's no way I'm going to give up my career, right?" So we have everything we need here. We just, need to. Once we retire, we can do that.
What was the pivotal moment of realization that made you decide that leaving the United States was the right choice for you and your wife?
It's crazy. I had no intentions of going back to Russia. I didn't really even follow what was going on in Russia. Up to I believe I was 31, 32 at that point. What changed? I was on YouTube one night. Literally, I was on YouTube one night, and somehow this Russian song popped up on my stream. I forgot the name of it. It was something that I heard back in Russia. It was a rap song about Moscow, Moskva, whatever. I forgot what it was. It just brought back all these
Maybe
emotions,
some of our
right?
viewers will remember and write it down in the comments if you guys know what song he's talking about. I'd love to. It sounds interesting.
It was a rap song. There's a line there. Какой его мать там Кириленко, какой его мать там Kobe Bryant. It's called Moscow City. I'm trying to look it up right now and see if I can.
So I guess getting back to the question, you heard this song about Moscow, but I wouldn't say that was your pivotal moment. What was like the actual, what events were happening around you? What transpired? Because you mentioned you were making good money. At that time, you were what, 31, 32 years old, if I'm not mistaken? And you were making like well over 150,000 a year at that time. Okay, so you had a good income, an amazing income. Both you and your wife are working. You guys owned your own apartment in New York.
Yes.
And if you guys know anything, you know, for those of you fellow viewers that are watching, you know, New York real estate is no joke. To own an apartment or any type of real estate in New York City, you have to be very successful. You have to be very dedicated. It's very expensive. So Alex did that. He was able to secure himself with a property. He had a vehicle, a very well paying job. And he still felt like everything, a lot was missing, and he wasn't happy. So at that point, the idea of Russia popped into your head. What happened afterwards? What happened next?
So this is just to I'll do a quick fast forward. The song brought up all these emotions to me, so I started pulling up. I said, "What's going on there? What's going on in the city that I'm from, Yalta? You know, what's going on?" I started googling all that. Once I started seeing all those videos, you got to understand, I was not a Russian kid growing up. If you ask me, I'm not Russian. I'm just, you know, blah blah blah. I never associated myself with that pride. So once all these songs, all that stuff started popping into my head, I saw the city. I can't explain it. I was hit, like it was crazy. I just got hit by this bug. So I told my wife, "Let's go to Moscow." And she said, "What? What do you mean?" I said, "Let's go to Moscow."
And your wife is American born?
She came to the United States when she was 1. So she might as well be American born. You know, she's half Colombian, half Guatemalan.
And she's never been to Russia up prior to this?
No, she has not. Her first reaction, her first question, and this is because of what she heard about Russia and America, is that, can I go there? I'm a little bit darker. My skin complexion is a little bit darker. Are they going to accept me there?
So she had probably some like ideas or thoughts or worries or misconceptions that she was a little bit nervous to try it.
She had misconceptions of like skinheads.
Completely normal.
It's like a completely white society. So that was her first question, which I thought it was a little weird because I do know all the nationalities that are in Russia.
Mm-hmm.
So between that, but I also I remember my city where I came from. I've never been to Moscow myself, right? So I told her I want to go back to visit my city, but we should stop in Moscow. And I just remember the first time we, I guess, got out of the airport in Moscow, and we started walking around the city and seeing everything. And I just thought it was a little bit weird. My first reaction and impressions of Moscow, other than the fact that it was absolutely beautiful, why it's so clean. And I remember my wife was saying, like, it's so quiet for a big city. There's like nobody screaming, cursing at anybody. Because in New York, if you walk around, there's a lot of, especially now, there's a lot of mentally ill people. There's a lot of just all kinds of stuff going on that you kind of I didn't even expect in a normal American society, 10 years ago, even though it's New York. So we were like, there's nobody screaming. Everybody's dressed nicely. The city is clean. It's like picture perfect, to be honest with you, but that's not what we were told. After we visited that, we just fell in love with the city. But also the culture was so different. The people, one thing, I have to, I don't know how to describe it without offending anybody, because don't get me wrong, America has a lot of amazing, amazing people. And the country gave me a lot. So this is not a knock on it. We're just talking about the change that transpired, and it's a shame. But the first thing I noticed about Russia was, though, the substance. Like, it's hard to describe, but when you're talking to people, it's almost like you're exchanging energy, right? I don't know if it's the same mental connection award, but every time I spoke to someone, I was very into the conversation. You almost like felt that person, right? The quality of life that we were looking for, the peace of mind, everything that bothered me in New York, between worrying about crime. And when I say crime, I don't mean like something you can see a mile away. Don't go to this neighborhood, is bad. I'm talking about random things that you cannot.
Random acts of violence, people getting pushed into trains, homeless people stabbing each other in the street, things that we all were exposed to growing up. If you don't mind me asking you, what year did you get there? What season of the year? What time of the year? And how long did you guys stay for your first trip?
It was summer 2019. and that was 2 weeks. We went there for 2 weeks
So 2 weeks.
at that time.
2 weeks, and so you spend 2 weeks there. You're absolutely, your mind is blown by everything you've witnessed. Did you feel this sense of like pressure being lifted after living in America for so long, growing up here, getting there, and back to the motherland, and feeling a little bit of relief? Did you get that vibe?
To be honest with you, yes, I had this pressure that I felt was just completely lifted off my shoulders, in a sense that I was at ease. For a first time in a long time, I was able to put my guard down. Like, I could take a deep breath, and not have to, worry. The social pressure of different demographics and how people react, what you say, what you don't say, the way somebody might look at you. Because in New York, as you know, you can have an issue out on the street at any point. Somebody can
You could look at
something.
somebody the wrong way just passing by,
Yeah.
and that can lead to a problem. Absolutely.
What happened was we went back to New York, and after our impression in Yalta and Moscow, I saw what was happening in the country, but the country was not the way it is right now. It was a slow / fast decline, but I already saw that everything was trending in the wrong direction. So the people were divided against each other politically. Everybody, you had to choose sides, all that stuff. So at that point, I told my wife, "Listen, I know what we're gonna do when we retire. We're gonna retire in Russia. We're gonna get a pension. We're gonna retire there." You know what? Actually, now that I'm telling this story, my mental decline and working even more happened after this trip. I realized I want to get back to my roots. It was calling me. This is where I want to retire, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as the country started to decline, in my mind, that retirement age went from, I'm gonna wait till I'm 55 to like, dude, no, I can't. No way. Let's do 4 years. We're gonna stay here for 4 years, and we gotta come up with something, and we're gonna move. Let's just move. It's a better quality of life. We don't have a kid yet, but I don't want to raise my child, in America. What's going on? Let's do that. So we had a 4-year plan, but also a year later, I think it was 2020, we went back again. Yeah, people were looking at losing their jobs. It was all kinds of, honestly, media propaganda of just scaring you into all these different things and where you can go, where you can't.
And now we got to be really, really
stuff.
careful, because this is a sensitive topic here on YouTube. So we got to try to monitor our words a little bit closely. But yes, we understand what was going on. Things were rapidly declining. What happened next?
And we were in Russia at that point again on a vacation, and we were just like, listen, I'm done. Like, we are at such peace here, even though we don't have much. Like, we don't have a job here, we don't have a career, we will have to start over. It's not like I'm coming to Russia,
You were
with a
doing well
job.
in America, but you would have to start over in
Yeah, I
Russia.
would have to give all that up, but I'm tired of worrying. The way I feel here, I had anxiety going back, right? I don't want to go back to what was going on there. And I said to my wife, and she kind of already knew what I was going to say, forget the 4-year plan. Let's fly back, sell everything, move back here, and just figure it out.
Wow.
And another thing I will say, the reception was absolutely amazing. My wife's a teacher. When we were in Moscow, when people saw her, first of all, she really tries to learn Russian. People were very receptive to her. They made her feel very welcome. Now we laugh about what she thought back then about Russia, right? So she was open to that idea, and she was like, "I'm ready to go too," which I was so surprised, because she's an American. She's an immigrant from a different country, but it's hard to find someone to basically say, she had an amazing career, by the way. I can't even emphasize how good we had it, because she actually, because of COVID, was transferred to a school 2 blocks from our house. She
Wow.
walked to work every day, and she got a pay increase, right? So with all of that, the reason I'm emphasizing all that is that we had to give up a lot to make this decision. Like, it was not a no-brainer, but our mental state and quality of life, I said, what is the point of living when you're not living? You're existing. You know what I mean? What am I going to do? The same thing for 20 years? Am I going to make it to my pension?
So you're making a bunch of money. You guys had all your ducks in a row,
Yeah.
but you were just declining physically, mentally.
Yeah.
You were miserable.
What is money, bro? Money can't buy health.
No.
Money can't buy health. Money can't buy life. I also remember I had this epiphany moment in the airport. I was sitting there, and I see this line of, I'm not trying to insult anyone. It's just, this is what came to my mind, my heart. I saw a line of elderly people in wheelchairs being rolled in to the boarding area, and they were all going to some place. This is like an elderly trip, and it just hit me. I said, I don't want to, travel. I don't want to live my life at 55
And end up that way.
That hit me. That image hit me so hard. I said, I don't care about money. I don't care about any of it. We're going to make it somehow. I don't know how, but I need to change the scenery, right? And that's what we decided. We sold everything. It was crazy. You know, people at my job, everybody that we knew, they said, you are out of your mind.
So I'm guessing that you guys were, you told some people that, about your plans. You said, hey, I'm moving to Russia. And I'm guessing people met you with a lot of really like funny and weird reactions. They were weirded out. Like, what are you doing in Russia? Why are you going there?
People can't understand. Yeah, right. If you have nothing to compare it to, a lot of people in America haven't traveled, and the ones that have, they know, they understand. The ones that haven't, they're the ones, what are you doing? You're throwing your life away, right? The other thing too that kind of put a perspective for me, when I went to Russia, we did meet a lot of people, and this was back in 2019, that said, what are you doing here? Why would you come here? The roads are bad. There's no more McDonald's, all these different things. But to me, those things did not matter anymore. Like, I don't care about roads. I don't care about McDonald's. I don't care about, honestly, electricity being on at all times. I don't care about not having hot water anymore. That's how fed up I was with, I want a peace of mind. I want to, my ideal life in Russia, find a job, pay my taxes, go home and have a peace of mind and not bother anybody and be left alone. You know what I mean?
So what makes it so different? Why is it, obviously, given the nature of the political climate in America these days, especially when you guys were, going through all of this, what is it about living in Russia that you thought at that time, or you perceived would greatly improve your physical and mental health that you couldn't do here?
Well, you know what? America was basically, I had a certain reality that was based on growing up in America, right? It was created for me. I had an amazing life in America. And this reality started crumbling all around me. Like, I couldn't understand what was happening. So, we were patriotic in 2021. Me and you joined the army. We want to go to the Rangers. We police, firefighters. Now it's like, that's toxic masculinity. And now the children.
Cops used to be respected. Now they're just, laughed at.
They laughed at, but the thing is, the government and the officials are letting it happen, and they encourage it as well. So the law and order went out the window.
It went out the window, absolutely.
We want to have a kid, and I did not want to raise my child because.
So you were thinking about the long term. You guys were talking about the future, potentially having a family, and you, upon seeing Russia after visiting and seeing how it was when it came to family values, cultural differences, safety, overall peace of mind, quality of life to some degree. And obviously, we know that there's people that struggle no matter what part of the world they are. But for you, you thought that it was the best idea to take the money that you already had made and try to use that to help you guys start a new life over there. So tell us a little bit about what happened after you got back to America and you hatched this plan. How fast did things go from there?
Yeah, just to summarize, and I thank you for putting basically everything I wanted to say in a quick 2 sentences. My values did not align with the values of the country anymore. That's what it came down to.